The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate alumni of color in their professional endeavors Aftergate.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Herman Dubois, aka Jerry.
Are y'all ready?
We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day. Yet many alumni of color and the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of alums of color.
Are y'all ready? Welcome back to Aftergate Podcast, Season 2 in the building. And this is Alvin Glimpf, and as always, I am here with my co-host, and it is Mr. Herman Dubois. Sir, we're gonna just jump right in. I just want to know, how are you doing today?
I'm floating, brother. I'm floating. It's been another productive day.
Yes.
Just staying on task. But we'll I don't want to derail us and get off on my high. So let's just focus on the superstar we have on the show tonight.
I appreciate that energy. Ready to get in this. Because it is a great day. It is an amazing day. So I'm just gonna stop right here without further ado. Jerry, is it okay for me to bring the guest on the show?
Let's do it. There's a lot of energy. Let's release the beast.
Let's go. So, without no more further ado, Aftergate listeners, the community, that we introduce the guest for this show, Miss Elizabeth Gormon, class of 93.
Okay.
Hey! I'm here. What up? Hey, Al. Hey, Jerry. Long time no speak.
Yes.
Hi.
Couple of decades.
It's only been, I don't know, 30 years? I'm not sure.
Only 30 years. Like, I'm pretty confident I have not seen you since I graduated. Maybe when I came back on campus, but either way, since you've graduated at the very least, because we just haven't crossed paths.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not true. I see you on Facebook. I've communicated with you and Gina on Facebook. So yeah, we've been in touch.
We've been in touch. We definitely have been in touch. And so for all the listeners, we always like to give a little heads up to let folks know, is this a person we know, we've crossed paths? Have we were we on campus together? Obviously, we were on campus together because people can feel the energy. So that's what's going on tonight.
We might know each other. We might have hung out.
We
might have had a couple meals. We might have been at a couple La Casa parties.
There you go.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Wow. But that being said, right? So here's the beauty about Aftergate. So for those who don't know, Aftergate is a podcast that the whole purpose of this is that we are looking to document, amplify the journey, the accomplishments of Colgate's alumni of color. That's what this is all about. And what this is so interesting is that while we hung out and we spent time on campus, I don't really feel like I really know your story, right? So tonight is not just about reminiscing, but I think we're going to learn something about your story, which is always dope.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. I'm scared.
So first, you are class of 93. You graduated high school class of 89.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So then for our listeners and for me and Jerry, paint the picture of what life was like as you remember it, 1989, 1980. What's the world like in that time? What's the world like for you going on in that time? Where did you go to school? Where are you from? Paint that context so that we know who you were, what the world was like before you come into Colgate.
Okay. So I was born in Brooklyn.
Hey.
So I lived in Brooklyn for a few years, very short time, and then I moved to Queens.
Okay.
I attended Hillcrest High School.
Wow.
Loved Hillcrest.
Okay.
I would go down to Jamaica Ave to the outlets. I forget it's the stores, and you'd have
Coliseum and all
Coliseum.
Yes.
So you'd have LL Cool J would be there. And I'm a girl, my hair has always looked like this. And LL would have all these girlfriends at Coliseum. And I would be like, how they get their hair so long? I had no clue. Clue what they were doing. But that's where I'm from, Hillcrest. While I was at Hillcrest, I was, I'm from a Caribbean family, a Caribbean background. So I was told you got to be a doctor. Meanwhile, everything I did was to be a lawyer. From the age of 12, when they said, you're gifted, here's this program, you can do this med program, this law program, this engineering program. I picked law program because I knew my mother wasn't going to know that I picked a law program. She wasn't going to read it. So, and it was free. So as long as she didn't pay for it, she wouldn't have known. So I did that, and I was in St. John's University over there. It was this free law program. Bernie Getz had been in the news.
Yep.
So we debated.
Correct.
Yes, the subway shooting.
The
For
vigilante.
you guys, younger people, you should definitely look it up. Look up Bernard Getz and see what happened, that whole situation. So I was debating in that class. I'm 12 years old for the record at the time, and debating that issue. When you look it up, you'll realize way too young to be debating that issue. But I did. And that's 12. I went to Hillcrest, did the fake med school thing. And when that was over, I went to Colgate. I still did the fake med school thing. What was my passion in high school? Because that was your focus, the question of high school. So high school, 87, 88, 89, AIDS, man. That was like the thing. And I have no idea where it came from, but I volunteered at Booth Memorial Hospital, which I think is New York Hospital now.
Okay.
I volunteered at the Gay Men's Health Crisis Clinic in the city. So again, lying to my mother, she had no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, it's for med school. I'm going to look good. I went down, I was helping out with at the time, AIDS was more like this gay cancer. And so they weren't allowed to go out to the store and buy groceries and stuff. So I volunteered to help do stuff like that and deliver groceries before the groceries, apps that we have now. And that was my passion. And I cannot explain. Nobody asked me questions why. I have no idea why, but that's what I was motivated to do. And I did that. I was a candy striper with my best friend at the time, Simone. So we were a candy striper at Booth Memorial. And it was a good time. And, Hillcrest was a great school. I think I posted on Facebook the other day, thank goodness for Hillcrest, because for girls like me, for women like me, for kids like me, in the inner city, the hope was that maybe I can get a good job as a secretary, or a stenographer or something. So, or to cook or to take care of my family. So it was required that I learn how to type. Thank goodness.
Yes.
It was required that I learn how to speed write. It was required that I learn how to cook. So those are all things that I'm very grateful for. And they actually have helped, knock on wood, I think, my career too. So that's where I'm from.
Appreciate that. Definitely very familiar with Hillcrest. I went to August Martin, so from Queens, grew up in Rosedale, but also born in Brooklyn. But one of my closest friends, young lady I went to IS 59 with, went to Hillcrest. So visited, hung out. I'm very good folk over at Hillcrest. So okay, shout out to Hillcrest. So
yeah, super shout out.
How did you hear about Colgate?
How did I hear about Colgate? I didn't hear about Colgate.
Colgate heard about her.
Yeah, what happened was I was one of those kids that I did really, really good in school, standardized testings and all that stuff. And I had terrible parents. So bottom line is they told me to apply to all the state schools because they were not going to pay for anything else. Meanwhile, I had the grades, the stats, and everything to go into into Ivy League schools.
Right.
that I carry to this day, that anger and that resentment. But in any event, so what happened was I applied to all the state schools, and my best friend, who had a single mom, definitely had less money than me, was like, I'm applying to Colgate. I'm like, if she can apply to Colgate, I can apply to Colgate.
Yeah.
And I applied to Colgate and I got in. It was a situation where they gave me financial aid that was enough for my mother not to say a word. It was even better than state schools. And that's why I went to Colgate. There's no other reason.
Okay.
So I'm curious. Just I know it's built. It's a question built off of that. Where would you have wanted to go? Now, I mean, it's a little tough in hindsight, but at 18, what was your dream school?
I had a dream school. I talked about it all the time, and I don't know where I got it from. My dream school was Cornell.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Okay.
I never even applied because my mother said, "Don't apply. I'm not going to pay for Cornell."
Wow. Okay. Just curious.
So you get into Colgate. Were you part of Scholars undergraduate summer? Did you come up for the summer?
So this is what happened. Again, tell you the story.
What happened was
my best friend was in the summer program.
Okay.
So she calls me, hey, I'm starting, I forget when, June, July, August, whatever. And I'm like, I didn't get invited to that. So I call up Colgate at 18 years old, because that's my personality. Remember, I'm the kid arguing about Bernard Goetz and all that stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, excuse me, I didn't get an invitation to this summer program. My friend is going, I want to go too. And they look me up. They're like, no, you don't qualify. I'm like, why don't I qualify? They're like, no, you got in like the regular people did.
Wow. Wow.
Another piece of evidence that Cornell would have been probably easy to get into what year was that? Oh my God, 1987, 89.
Right.
So now I'm even more curious. How did you process when they said that, like, did you have a stigma on what OUS students or your friend, let's say, how she got in, and what did that mean without really knowing the bigger context of it all? Yeah.
Jerry, it was depressing. It was
depressing because
I felt like I was alienated already, and I was already, and it was true because I showed up and everybody had already been friends and hung out, and I'm the stranger.
Okay. So, great segue. Give us a sense. What is life when you come on campus? Because you are coming with a friend, though. At least you know somebody on campus, good friends, but not with the necessary established relationships. What's life like when you get on campus those early years?
It's rough because my best friend from when we're 16 years old has now spent the summer with other kids at Colgate, and she's become someone else to me. And I felt very left out. I followed my usual norm of like focus on success. It's always been my norm. And so I focused on, I want to live in the quiet dorm because I want to study and be this stupid doctor that my mother wants me to be. So I signed up to be at Stillman. And I'm at Stillman. I'm in this dorm room where it's 4 of us. And I'm the only Black person in that room, in that space. That quad. Yeah. There's another Black guy that I met, and I'm like, oh, maybe, whatever. He wants nothing to do with me whatsoever. No, not even a hello. But if you have asked the right questions, you'll find out that he and I sort of kind of crossed paths maybe 4 years ago. But in any event, so in any event, I'm at Stillman. I have like a really cool sweet mate, Michelle. And I'm so grateful to this day for her. She and I are friends to this day, and I spent a lot of time with her because my best friend really had made these other friends. She's living someplace else. So me and Michelle kind of like hook up, and we both have like the same ilk, same like likes and fun and whatever. And that's my first, yes, as soon as I show up to Colgate. Right. Things change though, as you know, both of you know my story. So you know where I end up moving to.
Well, I'm gonna act like we don't know, right? So
okay.
So, but I do want to stop there for a second because we often have students who stayed in HRC who didn't stay in HRC. So as you are staying on the quad and you on the, are separated from this hub of Black culture, what's life like, or how are you perceiving this transition? And just give us a sense of what that was like for a young lady who's coming from predominantly Black community. So it's not like you're not alienated from Black culture, but I'm just curious to know how you perceive what was going on over there.
It was very confusing.
Yeah.
It was very confusing. I was trying to figure out my situation. What makes me happy? What makes me get, again, the focus? How do I get the best grades? How am I going to be the most successful? So study, focus. This friend thing is really like not on the top, like it's not high up there in terms of what matters to me at the time, but it is confusing because I told you I saw there was this Black guy in Stillman, and I'm thinking, hey, what's up? Whatever. And he's like, I don't even know you.
Right.
So that it was confusing, and it was confusing until I found my home.
How was academics? How did you focus on success? How did that turn out that first year?
I did science. I took all those pre-med courses, which whether you're Black or you're white, I think at that time at Colgate, it's very easy to fail. And I'm like a super hard worker. I did everything I could to do well in those classes. I did okay my first year. Yeah, I did okay my first year. But the science courses, I didn't find much support in them whatsoever. And also, I wasn't interested. I told you, I just wanted to be a lawyer, and I couldn't be.
G, what was you gonna say?
I was gonna ask that about sort of when we talked about her transition. She was obviously referencing the social element, but I was curious to hear about her academic transition from coming as an outstanding student in high school. Did you find the coursework challenging, not just in terms of the specific subject matter, but I guess the rigor and the workload and time management and all that comes with being a student, which you clearly address. So what would you, if you had to compare the two, was the transition harder academically, or was it harder just socially and to fit in, or were they equal? Was one more dominant in your life at that time?
I'm going to be honest, the fitting in wasn't such a priority. I really wanted to be successful.
Okay.
So, and if you looked at my transcripts back then, you would see basically straight A's that had anything in the classes that had anything to do with culture, government, race, politics. And if you wanted to look at some hard B- to C's, you were looking at science classes.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So, Alvin, I hope we get to the point when you and I are in a political science class together. Please.
Yo, remind me of that. Hold on, stop.
Please
share your story honestly.
Yeah.
30 years later, forgive this 52-year-old who does not remember. Please remind
unapologetically break it down.
Please.
I'm Alvin. At 51, I still tell people the story.
This is what makes Aftergate.
So Alvin and I are in a political science class. Our professor is pregnant, like really pregnant, like 8 months pregnant. And she shows up, and this is the first time ever. She separates the class into 2 groups. Alvin is in one group. I'm in another group. You want to take a wild guess as to what she wants us to debate in those 2 separate groups? Alvin is representing all the Black people in America, and I'm representing all the Black people in America in our separate groups, and we had to debate about a race issue.
Wow.
Guess that didn't go well.
It's not that it didn't go well, but it was tone deaf.
Yeah.
It was tone deaf. And just like, it's just an example of, all the times that professors who were trying at the time didn't realize they were trying to be woke and were exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. So Alvin and I ended up like fending for ourselves. You don't remember this, Alvin? And in the end, you and I came together because it was like, forget this.
This is a movie.
Forget this. And Alvin, I thought you were on the same level as me, that we got to the point that we're like, wait, it's not our job to educate the rest of you about race. Not our job.
If I may speak on behalf of the elder, being the elder in the room, I think if I had to guess why Alvin probably doesn't remember that is because he did it so many times in so many classes that by the time y'all were in a class together, he was obviously an upperclassman already. It had just become the protocol. It had become the MO. And maybe because you were an underclassman, and maybe, I don't know if that was maybe the first time you had that experience at Colgate, it resonated with you. Because I remember being an underclassman with Alvin and hearing from upperclassmen say this is going to happen. And then being in that situation and being like, this shit is crazy. And then it continues to be a cycle. So it's interesting when you hear people reminisce on stories that have remained with them for 20 and 30 years. And other times we're like, wow, remind me, yes, tell me what happened, because it happened so.
So I'll be honest, and he's right on point. By sophomore, junior year, I'm already feeling the burden of having to educate, and really got to a point where I even coined this term that white folks, the white people on this campus, were arrogantly ignorant, in that they were like choosing not to learn. And why am I having to fend for all what's going on in this community of color and carry the burden of educating y'all? And there were times where, you said, I have no choice. I am the one in this class to do it. And there was times where you could step back and allow others to step forward. But I'm glad we have that moment together. Kind of came together at the end of that, which is, like you said, a movie in the making. So that's what's good.
Yeah.
That was good. And Alvin, you were very cool. You were very cool. I think Jerry is 100% right. You had already experienced it. I had not, and that's why you did it correctly.
When you hear enough of these stories in terms of upperclassmen's engagement with students who are coming behind them, one of the things that you'll hear in these stories is this idea of mentorship. And as people are showing and modeling the way, what we're doing is then showing and modeling the way for others that were behind us. And, we have a list, me and Jerry, of students that were behind us that we know we had an impact of. I'm just gonna put your name on my list now too. Oh, I impacted her too, Jack. Mission accomplished. But honestly, that's what people, for me, when they poured into us, they asked that we pour into others, right? And that's the Colgate way when we were there. I can't speak to what it is after us or what it's like now, but in many ways, that's how it was for us. People showed us and we tried to show others.
100%. Like Diane, she was a huge influence. I was just so impressed with her. I wanted to be like her. She was just amazing. Let me think of who else I really, really looked up to.
Yeah, feel free. Shout them out. We show love here.
Now you're talking about Diane. You're talking about Diane Ciccone.
Diane Stewart.
No, Diane Stewart.
Oh,
Diane Stewart.
Okay.
Diane Ciccone, I did look up to too, because she was like a success story, an alumnus. She would always come back.
Attorney.
attorney, she always came back as if this was her child. Colgate was her child. So I appreciated that too. I'll tell you who else was someone really special at Colgate to me in terms of who I looked up to. Your wife, Alvin. After Gina, she, to me, I'll never forget, there was, we were picketing or complaining about something. I forget what it was. And maybe a war. I forget what it is. And she called me up, and I forget what had happened. And she told me, it was so great because what she said was something that as a Black girl rarely happens. She called me up and basically said, I saw you. And she was like, it sounds like you like this and that you care about this. So I'd like you to be one of the people that makes a presentation at like some event that we were having that ended up being televised. I ended up being on TV on this, about this. I'm forgetting what it was. It was a war that we were protesting, the Gulf War, maybe. Maybe. Yeah. So she was definitely one of those people that I always remember because it was a Black woman who saw me.
Nice.
So I appreciate that. Same way Diane Stewart, she saw me, you know. She saw a lot of us though.
It goes to the point that, you've been one of the first, although it's been echoed, that has talked to how you felt by not being a part of that summer experience, not for anything other than the relationships that were formed and how that becomes a support group informally, even without realizing it throughout the 4 years. And then you fast forward to be and to still build the bonds and the relationships with the community of color. It's I find it to be a very interesting take because there are people who have had the same dynamic who haven't had the same experience, that once they were not part of the summer, they kind of remain ostracized from the community of color who did. And then we've had guests and folks who were part of OUS summer, and then once mainstream Colgate kicked in, they ostracized themselves from the community of color. So I find it to be an interesting perspective that for you and your story, it's what was very relevant on many levels, socially, academically, politically. And so I continuously, I think Alvin has always said that the Subfrosh weekend is the greatest marketing tool of any university, of any admissions office, because it gives you that exposure. And then you have that followed by that summer experience. It really is what sort of gets you there. And then the Subfrosh weekend gets you to Colgate, and then the summer makes you a believer that you can survive 4 years because you go through those, whatever, 5 or 6 weeks. And so
for the record, where did you live your 4 years?
My first year, my first year was in Stillman, the quiet dorm.
Yep.
And then the second, third, and fourth year all were at HRC, Harlem Renaissance Center.
She brought it back.
I'm gonna stay right here. Thank you. So when you look at your time there, what do you think about as things, accomplishments, highlights?
I was an excellent spades
what are
player.
Some things you're real proud of? Say that again.
I'm an excellent spades player.
We're gonna have to try that out one day.
I was gonna say time out.
She just threw it down. Oh, time out.
We're
gonna have to try that out one day.
Is that self-proclaimed excellent?
No, I know. No.
Are you basing this? Are you on ESPN Spades Tournament somehow?
No.
Oh,
I'm an excellent spades player. Spades player. I'll tell you that right now. I have been It was funny because I was dating my husband. Oh my God. So I was dating my husband, and we go to like this party and a barbecue in Brooklyn. I'm in my 20s, and they decide to play spades. And my husband doesn't know spades. He grew up in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So they sit down to play spades, and I'm like, I'm playing too. So I sit down, I start playing, and my sweet husband, this is like one of our like dating kind of thing, and he's watching, and he hears like this one guy who's my partner just came out of jail, and he sees me and that my partner, like we're like this.
Right.
Hardly speak. We hardly say a word to each other, and my husband is like, what is this? Is this a prison game?
You don't talk? There's no communication here?
or something I don't know about your past.
Like, I'm focused. We're locked in right now.
Focus. So that was one of the, I appreciate Colgate definitely for that. I made sure I taught all my kids how to play spades.
Same here.
So that was one of the things on the list as a good parent that I needed to do. Alvin, can I tell you a quick story? It was funny because my daughter goes to Dartmouth. So her first year there, I wanted to bring that story up. I forgot. So the first year there, we go to a bar in front of Dartmouth. There's only like 3 bars. So at the bar, we're drinking, me, my husband, and my daughter. And then there's like another couple and their son. Everybody's going to Dartmouth. It's their like orientation stuff. And this is like 3 years ago. So we're talking, and they're listening to my conversation. I'm talking to the bartender, and the bartender with my daughter, we're talking, and I'm like, yeah, I went to Colgate. Yeah, I graduated. It was like 93. And then the husband and the wife go, you went to Colgate? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you graduated in 93? We went to Colgate and we graduated in 93. I'm like, the white people, obviously. So I'm like, yeah. And they're like, maybe we know, the same people. I'm like, yeah, I lived in West Stillman. They're like, the guy was like, I lived in West Stillman too. I'm like, I remember seeing you. And I said, there was this guy like lighter than a white guy. Do you know him? So the wife goes, yeah, he was really hot. He was really good looking.
Wow.
So he's divorced. His path was trying to be a white guy. So he ended up marrying a white woman, having kids that look like they're white. And that was his path. He wanted nothing to do with me as a friend, or as an acquaintance. So we lived in the same
or HRC, or the African American Student Alliance, or the cultural.
He never went to any cultural event. You guys don't even know him. He's a cute, light-skinned guy that went to Colgate my year, who graduated from Colgate. So he was there. You were there. He never tried, never wanted. He was probably hiding from you guys. He probably looked at you, Jerry, and was like, nah, don't let him think. Don't let him in.
So he was trying to blend. He was trying to blend, and you was not helping the blending process.
Correct, because I was shouting him out, and then everybody's like, how come this girl is acting like she knows you?
Oh, no, me?
Because you're black.
I thought we're friends. You're black.
Right. That's
we're
how we do.
Yeah, we were the only 2 black people in West
You're
Stillman.
you're supposed to, right?
You said you're the only black person.
Right.
Correct. I was the only black person there. No, there's nothing else to it. I was dissed. That's it. That's the story. I was dissed. Because he and I could have been friends. We could have been like supported each other. But it was just dumb. It was just dumb. You could tell he came from a background that it was like, let me try to be as white as possible.
It was different. We'll just say it was different.
And I feel
he wasn't coming from Queens or the Bronx.
And I feel bad for him. I feel bad for anybody who can't be their authentic self. You know that from what I tell you about how I feel about gay rights. I feel bad for anybody who can't be themselves.
Any extracurricular activities? What were you involved in when you were on campus?
Oh, I need Caribbean Students Association, Black Students Association. I went to every La Casa party I could get to. I can't think of anything else. I did go on a study group to to Mexico. So I went to Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua. That was amazing. Colgate, I tell people all the time, it was the best time of my life. It really was. Up until, having kids, getting married and all that stuff. Great time. I'm trying to get my son and my youngest. I have 3 kids. My youngest, I'm trying to get him to go to Colgate.
Nice.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So what year did you go on that study group? Like, when did you go?
My junior year.
Okay. That's what's up.
So I think sophomore, you mentioned, so I think sophomore year, I could be wrong. Did you serve as an officer in the African American Student Alliance?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff, Jerry. Come on.
I thought because that was our senior year, and so I think I remember you being on the executive board. Yeah, that group. Anyway, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm not gonna remember it. I'll tell you why. I had so much fun. I had so much fun. You know, it's not like it's a resume where you're like, okay, I did this and I did this and no, 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 no. I had a great time. I found my home. Diane Stewart, when she started talking about that play, it was just a great experience, you know. And I know kids, remember I told her I have 3 kids. Two of them, one is going to enter her last year of college, one is graduated from college, and they see things differently from me. They're like, that whole HRC thing, that's segregation. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. So that's a big fight. That's a big fight.
I think that has a lot to do with how HRC has evolved for this generation. I don't think they value it and see it the same way we did. I think that's part of it. But quick question, have you been back to campus?
I have not.
Okay. All right. Good.
I've been meaning to for the last few years. I want to. I would prefer to have a nice group. Remember, I went to HRC because that's where my people were. Yep. So if I see my people are coming for a trip, I'm going to be there. But I haven't seen like a group yet. I'm still with a group of other women that went to Colgate that, you know, we were pretty close to. We just had a party at my house, a pool party at my house a couple weeks ago. So, you know, it's nice to stay in touch, and there's a heart to that I don't think other people who went to college with other people have, because we're all Black women and we experienced life on a campus that was predominantly Black. I believe at the time we had 50 Black people out of everybody in the school. That's pretty much the definition of minority. So.
So let me understand. So you have had a pool party with Colgate folk.
Girls, women.
Colgate women. Any of them go back to campus, or y'all just kind of networking amongst each other?
Gotcha. Oh, they do, and they're trying to get me to go, but I need more. I need like a bigger group. And
we're doing this right now. Hopefully this is the beginning of you kind of coming back on campus, and we'll definitely keep you in the loop now that I hear it's a possibility of future opportunities where we know folks is going to be on campus.
But you guys,
honestly, now that I think about your year, I can't think. I don't remember seeing a lot of folk when I have gone on campus.
From my year, probably not. But remember, you guys were different. You were upper class. You were in Earlville, not like the rest of us.
Look at you. Great memory. But on that note, before we get too far down the Earlville stories, we're going to take a pause so that we can show some love to our sponsor. And then we will be back with this awesome conversation with a friend and a fellow Colgate alum, Elizabeth Gormon. So this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Welcome back. We are here to wrap up this conversation with Elizabeth Gormon. But before we jump into that conversation, let me make sure we show some love to our sponsor, Hope Murals. Make sure you check out Hope Murals, hopemurals.org. Check out what they're doing to make our students, our youth around this country, and ultimately around the world, better people. Hopemurals.org to find out what they're doing with our folk. If you want to be a sponsor, make sure you check us out. Send us an email, aftergatepodcast@gmail.com. And you can also show our network some love, which is the Defy Life Network at godefylife.com. A lot of written, interesting content on that website. So make sure you get on that. And if you want to check out their podcast hub, it is www.defylifepods.com. You can find other dope podcasts like Aftergate on that site. So get on it and show them some love. So let's get back to this conversation. So before we start dipping and diving into hearing your story after Colgate, I would love to get your thoughts on really the value of you in your career and having the opportunity to mentor students that are coming from Colgate. And I also particularly like to hear your thoughts on if what would be the value of students of color, particularly being directed to you so that you could be a mentor to those students. Love to hear your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I think it's so incredibly valuable for me personally as a Caribbean kid, first generation, who didn't have any mentors who were lawyers, doctors, engineers. Everybody just came here and was just trying, to hustle, hopefully be a nurse, be a, a lab tech. So, even once you pass the bar, you got to scramble as a first generation Caribbean person, just walk, put yourself on this plate, on this earth, to find someone who will attest to your character, who's a lawyer. Do you know how hard that was to find?
Mm.
It was incredibly hard. I had no white mentors or any mentors to help me out with that because we're all brand new to it. And I value that mentorship so much because of that, I'm trying to help others. So for the last, I would say 15 years, I've reached out to Colgate, to their career services office, to say if someone is interested in shadowing or an internship, please contact me. And they have sent some really great people. I've never been sent someone of color. I'm not sure why that is. And I hope that I could be a resource. I come from a financially disadvantaged background. I come from a background of being Black, which is a lot, or being Haitian, which is a lot too, of being a woman, of being someone from Queens, at the time in the 80s and the like. And I'm, for this podcast, I'm out there. You have my name, look me up. If you're interested in law, look me up. If you're just interested in having someone help you figure out, how to have a good work ethic,
Yep.
please come to me. It's you don't have to be a lawyer, but that work ethic, you can take it anywhere. And I'm a big believer in a part of that work ethic. I'm gonna just tell you right now, wasn't for mentorship in terms of other people here, newer people, but from the Caribbean background, we work hard or harder than most. We respect that dollar. When we get paid a dollar, we earn that dollar and more. We are not interested in getting that dollar if we didn't work really hard to earn it. We're believers in earners. No participation trophies for us. We don't want a trophy that everybody got. It's like, what is that? Get that out of here.
Tell it.
Well, not to belabor, and thank you for pitching that, because I think back again, and Alvin and I have shared this experience as well as with others. Part of that Colgate experience, and particularly senior year, I remember having white classmates that by mid-fall semester already had jobs in corporate America because they had interned, because they had summer jobs, because dad or mentor knew someone that put them on. And it was all great. I just didn't understand, like, wow, that's clearly like an incredible advantage to have, because I knew I didn't have that. But I also I'll hold myself to a higher bar. I also didn't pursue the career services office in probably the way that I should have. I did stick my head in there. So immediately what it was like was, and left, and didn't bother to hold Colgate accountable to serving me as a student, regardless of whether I was a student of color, had mentors, had whatever background. And so I think that some of that permeates today when you talk about not getting any students of color who are interested, because we have met students of color who are looking to go to law school, who would be ideal for.
Where are they?
but look what you said. You've contacted the career services department. The career services department is only going to have information for students who have gone to the career services department to say, I'm looking for this. And so if I relate it to my experience, Colgate, a lawyer that might have been interested in helping me, never got my name because I never provided it to the career services office. And so I say that to say that this is a big part of why we were doing this, because when we've been on campus, we had 3 young ladies who were interns for us when we started Aftergate last year in season 1. one of the sisters who was president of the Black Student Union just graduated. Amazing sister, and I could just see how she would benefit from this opportunity. And guess what? It don't gotta go to the career services department. It could be because we as an alumni group have to recognize the gaps in what's happening and not happening and fill those gaps. And so where we build, not that we should replace career services department, we should hold them accountable, but we should do more to make sure that more students of color currently are linking with the amazing alumni of color who are offering these mentoring opportunities officially and unofficially. So thank you, because you just kind of confirmed something that's been coming up often, is that we belong and we don't take advantage of everything that Colgate has to offer when we're there for whatever the reasons are. But then we can turn around and wait 30 years before we go back to Colgate because we hold that, And I'm testifying because it was Alvin who dragged me kicking and pulling and has made me a believer that, you know what, we deserve to be part of this network. We deserve to benefit from the relationships and the resources that Colgate offered us then and still offers us now. So
yeah. And I'll tell you, Colgate was a big part of my success currently. I'll tell you that too.
Right.
And I'm not going to diminish that.
We are boldly saying that as a community of color, as alums of color, it is time for us to reclaim what is ours, because the Colgate story is like, we are that story. So much of that story is us. And while we have turned our back on this campus and this institution, we are turning back what is rightfully ours. And to Jerry's point, while communities, the career services, they're going to do what they do, but it's up to us to utilize other methods and mechanisms that we have at our disposal. So there's Veronica McFall, who is, very instrumental and serves on campus, Colgate alum. Part of what she does is connect students of color to alums of color through like just really doing programming, emails, the Mosaic program where they invite alums of color to talk about their careers. And in essence, what you're doing is saying, hey, I'm Alvin Glim. Here's what I do. If you're interested in connecting with me, I'm up here for this weekend. Get at me. And so we will definitely, do what we can to make sure people know, not just through this podcast, but also through our channels, to say, hey, if there are some folk who want to connect with an amazing alum who happens to be a lawyer and is open to being a mentor, check her out. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yes.
Of course.
So with that being said, now we bring it back to sort of like full circle. When you graduate Colgate, you've got the 4 years of Hamilton in your system, ready to get out of Colgate. Walk us through from then to now. So give us sort of like the various cliff notes of highlights and where you go through in life. What happens next? Like, are you back in Queens? What's going on? And then where do you end up as Miss Gormon? How do you end up as Miss Gormon?
So the plan was for me to get out of town after high school. So I get to Colgate. I'm like, okay, I got to keep going. Medical school is not happening. Law school is happening. I apply to law school. I'm devastated because, again, I'm an overachiever. I get waitlisted to Columbia Law School and Georgetown Law School, which was, this is a tip that I'm going to say to everybody who's listening, who's at Colgate and wants to, especially people of color, women of color, those recommendations. Whoever is going to write your recommendations, ask them to share with you what they're going to write. Unfortunately, there were people that were out for self. And, when I contacted those two schools to find out why I got onto the wait list, I was told it wasn't your grades, it wasn't your stats, it was your recommendations. And my recommendations were from two Black professors at Colgate.
Wow.
Okay. Don't assume that people are going to have your back. So that was a terrible thing that happened to me. And it is what it is. I ended up going to a law school in DC because I was interested in politics too. Went to GW, George Washington University in DC. Did my 3 years there, graduated there. I wanted to save the world. I really was a big believer in, how things weren't fair for Black people, for people who are at the time we talked minorities, people of color. So the first job out of law school, which I was so excited about having, was as an employment discrimination attorney representing people who alleged to have been discriminated. And I was going to save the world. I worked at the EEOC first, actually. EEOC first internship. I was going to save the world. Then I was working as a plaintiff's attorney, going to save the world. And then I was like, whoa. I was going to hearings. I was getting all these amazing settlements, and none of these settlements, I'm telling you right now, not one of these settlements involved a Black person. Not one of these settlements involved a woman.
Wow.
They were white men who are in other boxes, disability, sexual orientation. None of them looked like me. The women that came to my firm at the time seeking justice couldn't get it. Mm-hmm. And that was just horrible. At the same time that they couldn't get it, I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't pay my student loan bill. I mean, it was rough. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to the other side and becoming a defense attorney. And as a defense attorney and employment discrimination attorney, I think I do right by the community and society, because there are not very many of people who look like me who defend. When I defend any organization, I defend the case, try to get you off, but also I try to make sure this never happens again. I try to help them see it through the eyes of the person that's suing. I try to get them to understand that they need to make changes so that this doesn't happen again. Most of the time, there was no discrimination, but there was no time to really look in depth at the practices and the communications that could easily be seen by someone who looks like me as discrimination. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I work on that. I try to rehab them. I try to make sure that they never get sued again. I love my clients. I protect my clients. I have a duty to protect them. So not only do I defend, try to get them off, but I also try to make sure they're not faced with that situation again. So that's basically where I am. Right now, I'm at a firm. I'm actually one of the 6 people that run the firm. We've got... We have like, the number I keep forgetting, maybe like 110 attorneys at this point, with offices in Florida, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. I might be missing 1 or 2. And,
where are you based?
I'm based on Long Island. So okay. I was at a law firm in the city, not really raising my son, who was the last one. And I called a friend who moved to work on Long Island, and he told me to come here at this place. I went to the interview. It took me 10 minutes to get from my house to the interview. I showed up. I was like, give me this job. Give me this job. And that was it. I got to do what I really, really cherish and appreciate. I was the president of the school board for many years for my kids. I ran field day for my kids for 11 years, a party basically for 600 kids when we had the most in terms of enrollment. I was there for softball games, baseball games, tennis matches, golf ridiculousness. What other sports did these kids play? They played every sport. Whatever sport it was, I was there for Thanksgiving parties, all those, class mom stuff. I remember to me, this is important. So there was a time I applied to be a class mom for one of my kids, and the teacher said to me, "You don't want to be a class mom, you work." So that was the end of that. So I was class mom.
Watch me, I'm gonna be a class mom.
They told that to the wrong person. Oh, you don't know what I can do.
You work. So that's my story.
Okay. So it was from so DC then back to New York basically. There was no okay, cool. Got it. So in hindsight now, if you had to meet Elizabeth at 17, 18, coming out of Hillcrest and entering Colgate, what might be your words of wisdom that you would give to her now as the 51-year-old mentor, advisor? What would be the perspective or the advice you would give to the Liz coming out of Colgate at 21, entering the world?
It would be the same.
Mm.
Have more fun.
Mm.
A lot of time you spent as a kid, as 17, 18, 20, 21, up until like maybe you're like 24, 25, worrying about what people think of you, when you should be worrying about, does this make me happy? Am I having a good time? Am I having the best time that I could possibly have? I didn't do that. I wish I had done that. I would have had a much more, I still had an amazing time, don't get me wrong, but that's my words of wisdom to myself. I would have had I would have done more stuff. I would have taken more risks and for that happiness, with that goal.
Got it.
Sweet.
Nice.
Our final question is really just an opportunity for you to promote any organization, initiative, opportunity, website. Just here's a platform for you to share whatever you would like to share with our listeners.
Like I told you before, I've always had this affinity for doing what I can to help the gay community. So if there's any organization that promotes any causes concerning people, sexual orientations and gender identities, there's an organization that I represent, and I'm not going to say the name, I don't think I can, that's out there where people are having surgeries to become who they really are on the outside. And they provide the money that insurance doesn't cover to do the different things that are needed to become your true self. If you can find those kinds of organizations, and because you want to do something that Liz Gormon is interested in, that's what I'm interested in. Anything that involves gay rights and that platform, that's important to me. Now, it's not like it's the only thing. Anything involving helping Black girls, Black women, absolutely. That's all. I love that. But like I told you, from the time I was a teenager, that has always struck me as, something that's important to me.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for coming on our podcast. And it's just been a fascinating conversation. I look forward to staying connected. I look forward to actually being in your presence, whether it's on Colgate's campus or not.
We're going to get her up there. True
that. But yeah, just thank you. And look forward to seeing you in the future. All right.
Yes. Nice seeing you both. Thank you, Alvin, for a poli-sci class.
So on that note, this has been another episode of Aftergate Season 2. Thank you to our guests. Thanks to our listeners. As always, Aftergate is powered by the Defy Life Network. Make sure you check us out on all of the dope podcasts that are coming in the future on all of your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Many more dope episodes to follow. And remember that the Colgate you knew is not the Colgate of today, and is certainly not the Colgate of the future. Peace, family.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy Life.